Good morning. Honestly, I know that different channels have different ideas as to the content within their videos. We've got the channel that lives in ivory towers and reminds us a little bit of Uncle Fester from, what's the Adams family, I think it was, sitting there with his spreadsheets, telling everybody about how wonderful it is to live in the Philippines, which I agree 100% with you, Mike. And I don't agree with your connection to MYKE because simply I've been living under certainly the memory of that guy. And he did get under my skin because you have one thing about YouTube channels is that as much as you might like to respond to somebody, it's very hard not to. And it's very hard to. The reason being that there's a certain amount of anonymity about having a channel. People send me emails because emails are in my description. With those emails, I think I've only had one that ended up in the garbage bin simply because the guy was rantingly mad. Not necessarily mad with me, but the way he wrote the letter or the email just seemed that he was maybe a bit unhinged. And I didn't block it. He could still send me more rubbish if he wanted to, but whether I bothered to read it or not once I realised it was from him would be another thing. But many of the messages that I get by email are very interesting, and some of the people have actually ended up quite good friends as a result of it. And we communicate either by now, face to face, or in fact, email to email. And I encourage emails because they really do bring two people's minds together. But responses, I think really when we look at what's that rubbish channel, and I'm sorry I have to call it that because that's what I see it as. That's just my personal opinion. Philippine antics. I suppose, yes, it's in the Philippines. The antics, yes, it's whatever they'll get up with. And of course now there's four. There's Randy and Rose. There's picking on Stephen, walking around in his jungle as they like to mimic him, challenging his right to talk about somebody who's possibly being deported because of a court case that Stephen spoke about. And it was an interesting one because it also highlighted enough interest that even Filipina P thought it worthy of a comment. And this is what people don't seem to realize is that many of the channels come up with an issue. They don't realize the issue that they're really talking about. They scratch the surface. And as a result, nothing really ends up. It's like Mike and Maria, we'll call her. Because I don't think it's fair to call out a woman that really has nothing to do with the channel. But if you were to listen to Mike and from Angeli's City, you would think that they sit there in front of the computer together, working out all of the things they're going to do. And they may well do. And maybe that's the reason. But I tend to think, you correct me if I'm wrong, when you have a man who has a very dubious past, and I say dubious by the fact that he created it himself. He's spoken about the things he was involved in. He's spoken about issues about massage parlors, Vegas, the seedier side of life. But of course, he was never totally involved in it. If you really believe that, then you believe that the moon is square. Because this guy, after all, he's a multi-millionaire. No, I'm not jealous of him. He's maybe a doctor, maybe not. He leaves you with the knowledge that he's could be or he couldn't be. He is certainly involved in what he admitted was what we would call rest homes, retirement homes, looking after the aged, which is big business in America, big business in Australia. And then he talks about being in clinical and then no longer in that, moved to another area. Good on him. Good on him. Then he talks about life in the Philippines. He has the answer to everything. He researches it. It's all about research. I'm afraid, guys, you can research something so much that you'll just end up with a whole load of information that's completely at cross purposes. Coming to the Philippines takes time, it takes effort on the behalf of the person planning it. We can plan to come here after many, many years of making the decision that this is the place to come and retire. But if we rely on people like Heidi and George and Mike and Marilyn, then more fool you, because you won't find out the real Philippines on a spreadsheet. You won't find out the real Philippines just upon the latest one that they decide to have a go at on Philippine antics. You're more likely to discover how life can be on channels such as Philippines Through the Eyes of a British Expat. Stephen, you're more likely to find life as it really is through watching Ian living in the Philippines, or even, dare I say it, on what used to be called Grumpy Brit in the Philippines, or British Expat in the Philippines, which you're watching on now. Simply because there are no flowers, there are no pink-coloured glasses, rose-coloured glasses. It's boots on the ground in my line. I have a friend from Europe at the moment, well, Middle Eastern Europe, and he's over here in Davao, and he's having a ball because he's putting into practice all of the things he's dreamed of doing. He's been absolutely amazed at the things he's learnt in the last 2 weeks he's been here. He realizes he can't make that final decision until many, many months, if not years, before he finally comes here to retire, if in fact he does. But he's come here with the intention of trying to find out a little more about the Philippines, how it ticks. And as I've said before, you can't do it unless you're here. I'm sorry, guys, you can look at all of the glossy folders of how the place looks. You can see all the pretty girls on all of the channels that come out of the Philippines. But you will never replace it without being here, boots on the ground. Back to our dear little friends. Ooh, horrible Heidi. We'll call her Horrible Heidi. She always likes to give people names, so we'll have Horrible Heidi. Horrible Heidi has decided that she's now going to pick on a channel that is no longer there anymore. It's a channel that I used to watch regularly because I'm interested in construction, interested in the minds of a different approach to building a home. And we had Richard. I can't remember what the name of the lady was. She is a Filipina. She's a deep thinker. She's very artistic. And Richard used some of his talents in the building industry. I believe it was mainly in concreting, so he has a good knowledge of concrete. And he first built a house in the vegan area up there in northern Luzon. And he had a very successful channel. People were following him as he expanded from the original home that he built for him and his wife. And it progressed into building other homes. And it was a really hands-on, a good channel. And there are a lot of channels out there that start off fairly basically, showing you them building their home to the point where they become quite good role models for those trying to build, and they highlight some of the difficulties that you'd have. But sadly, Richard and I can't remember her name. I think it might have been Rose. I'm not sure. But anyway, Richard and his wife separated under quite a lot of public scrutiny. They went on that Ruffy channel and they did their usual foreigner and Filipina face to face. I'm not sure what they ended up with doing, but in the end, the channel shut down. Richard, over a period of time, tried to open up another channel, and I believe he still has that channel. I can't remember what it was called now. But Horrible Heidi and Silly George is now deciding that they're going to use that as their little whipping brush. They're having a go now. Of course, we'll call her Rose, common name. She now apparently, of course, the great investigative knowledge that Horrible Heidi has decided that not only has she found a new love, a Filipino love, but that she's still madly in love with Richard. How pathetic can you get? That somebody who's not even in a relationship, really, that you can put your finger on, seems to know everything about everybody else's relationships. That's pretty amazing, really, given that even Filipinos find it hard to navigate their own relationships with a foreigner. And I say that because I've been in one. I am in one. And therefore, it's easy for me to talk, boots on the ground. We all try our best to communicate with our partner. Some are better at it than others. Whether it's by design or by sheer accident that they end up with a great relationship is another story. And I'm going to do a video coming up maybe today while the mind is connected to it. I'm going to call it, remember that movie, Tale of Two Cities? It's a great title. I can't quite remember what the storyline was, but I'm going to call it Tale of Two Romances or something like that. And I'd like you both to listen to it, both for the point of view of a woman and the point of view as a Western man, woman being Filipina. Because I think many of you might see a connection with your own relationships, whether good or bad, and I think it might help you get your head round dealing with an interracial relationship. American use that expression, but when you're married or living with somebody who is from a different culture, it really is a difficult thing to get your point across. Each time you think you've mastered it, you realize it's just fallen short. And therefore, We need to learn some of the skills, or at least be able to identify why we're feeling the way we are, why we get frustrated, why they get frustrated, and try and find remedies, results, purpose in what we talk about. We don't want to talk about spreadsheets, the percentage of this and the percentage of that, as interesting as it might be for the supplier of that information. The minute he starts bringing out spreadsheets to express his way of addressing an issue, he's lost me, because that's not real life. We do not live behind spreadsheets. Yes, you can have an estimate of your income, your outgoings, your so-called budget, as people often like to refer to it. But no matter what budget you listen to, whether it's mine, his, or theirs, it will always be different. So guys, stay tuned to this channel, because I hope to bring you as much, if not more, than where it was before. And maybe you'll start to understand why I just change the channels across to bring you to my channel, so that I'm free to bring it to you each day without fear of it suddenly stopping for some reason and then starting again. It's no good for you. Imagine having a TV channel that you watch every night at 6 o'clock every day. You look forward to the depressing news or the happy news that comes on it. And then suddenly, boom, black screen. Where's John gone now? He seems to have disappeared. Well, yes, that's the problem when somebody controls the channel that you're on. And fortunately, that's not the case now. And it's also not the case with the former one, because there's no reason for it not to remain. If they decide to block it again, then I can't make any comment. That's their decision. But one would hope they don't, because it gives you an opportunity. If you look at the old videos, go back on them, learn from them, get ideas from them. That's all they're there for. They're to give you a foreigner's point of view of living here in the Philippines, trying to find a permanent, long-lasting relationship. It can be rocky sometimes. It can be frustrating sometimes. It can be heartbreaking sometimes. But even at 77, I feel I have the resilience to do that. Yes, I think I do. Whether that's by design or by just sheer good luck, I've been able to stay alive a little longer. And I hope to remain that way for a little bit longer too. So I know I've talked on a lot of different issues today. I hope we're going to have more from Horrible Heidi and Silly George, no doubt. And you'll get your tuppence worth from me as well. I'm sorry that way, but somebody has to point out how ridiculous the channel really is. When are they actually going to give us some real content, instead of just being tit for tat, sort of childishly talking about what they believe to be the truth about everybody else? Sad individuals. But then poor George is dealing with a narcissist. She just can't help herself. Amazing. She's a bit like a female version of her best friend too, MYKE. You know, everyone says, he's here, he's out there. Well, I wonder why doesn't he turn on his 50,000 viewers, 50,000 subscribers? Why doesn't he demonstrate now? He's had long enough. Why doesn't he come back and annoy the hell out of everybody else again, like he used to? I'll tell you why. Because nobody's interested in him anymore. He's a sad individual, just like horrible Heidi and silly George and Uncle Hester will chug along, believing, well, he has all his wealth and he has his house in Mindanao, but he's not quite sure what he has it there for. Maybe hiding money? Who knows? Let's cause a rumour. That's all it is, rumours. Oh, we haven't spoken about Geo, have we yet? Geo, the one that was maybe a little bit, let's be the same. Maybe he's a little bit, he's off in Thailand now. He's happy to show his bald head. Good on him. Be proud to have no hair. Nothing wrong with a bald head. Luckily, I've got this. But I say luckily, only because I think I would look even worse with a bald head. But Geo's doing fine. He's pulling the women. Thailand, Cambodia. He's in Thailand now, telling you how wonderful it is. Well, of course, many people think it is, but whether it's a great place to retire anymore, that's becoming doubtful. A lot of unrest in Asia at the moment. A lot of changes to citizenship, visas, all that type of thing. Taking the edge off of these places is what is happening all the time. But keep an eye. Remember, you've got the other guy who's turning his house into a piggery. Remember? My goodness, we're going to be full of it over the next few weeks and months. It's going to be wonderful. So much stuff out there. Who needs dramagetti anymore? Punch-ups outside a coffee shop. My goodness, just tune in to Horrible Heidi and George and maybe listen to Uncle Hester with his spreadsheets. Or Geo. Oh, not to forget sick Grandpa. My goodness, we have so many to talk about. But in between that, we might talk about real things too on this channel. And I hope you take advantage of Grumpy Brit, as it will be within 12 days when I can change the name to Grumpy Brit. Because the channel is a good channel. You've followed me for a long time, and I do appreciate it. But come over and join me also on what is now the revamped British expat in the Philippines. Have a great day. Bye now.